But again, good morning. I am Joe Commissar, the Fort Worth Police Department Capital Projects Planning Manager, and I'd like to welcome you all today to the acceptance ceremony and the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Fort Worth Police Department Mounted Patrol Equestrian Facility. Today the city is going to accept this facility as a gift from the Citizen Support Group from the Mounted Patrol, which has been leading the way and representing the very generous donors that have made this project possible. Before we get started, a couple of administrative announcements. I don't think anybody's missed the refreshments out front, but if you have, they'll be available after the ceremony is complete, and I encourage you to participate with those. And also following the ceremony, we will have a tour of the complete facility that will start from the door behind me, and I'll get into that after the ceremony is complete. What I'd like to do right now before we get started is just introduce some of the distinguished participants and visitors that are here today and give us a chance to recognize them, starting, of course, with the mayor of this great city of Fort Worth, the Honorable Betsy Price. A city council member representing District 7, Dennis Shingleton. And additional city council members that are in the audience. Fort Worth City Manager, Mr. David Cook. Tarrant County Commissioner representing Precinct 4, Mr. J.D. Johnson. Fort Worth Chief of Police, Mr. Jeff Halstead. Mounted Patrol Supervisor, Sergeant Brandon Hill. Parks and Community Service Director, Mr. Richard Zavala. The Chair of the Parks Advisory Board, Ms. Sheila Hill. The President of the Citizen Support Group for the Mounted Patrol, Mr. Brad Barnes. The Executive Vice President, Sidalco Construction Services, Mr. Russ Garrison. Principals, Hanfeld, Hoffer, and Stanford, Mr. Eric Hanfeld and Mr. David Stanford. And I didn't see him come in, but the President and CEO of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Bill Thornton, if he made it today. The Commanding Officer, Naval Air Station, Joint Reserve Base, Fort Worth, Captain Gil Miller. Mr. Art Cavazos, Chief District Operations, Fort Worth Independent School District. Executive staff of the local neighborhood associations. And finally, members of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo Executive Committee, members of the Parks Advisory Board, other Fort Worth ISD representatives, city staff, and the many others who have helped to make this project possible today. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for your attendance today. At this time, I'd like to ask our city manager, Mr. David Cook, to come forward and make his comments.
Thank you, everybody. What a great morning, isn't it? Wow. So we're exceptionally pleased to accept and open this Mounted Patrol facility today. The current facility or the old facility, anybody seen that? It's a little old, a little tired, a little undersized, maybe in need of some repairs, probably past its useful life. This new facility is a great leap forward. Mounted unit officers will work in a substantially improved working and training environment. The horses now have pastures, actually a place to walk around, and a dedicated training area, enabling them to be more effective. And the facility includes space for future expansion of the unit to accommodate the city growth over the upcoming years, and we will continue to grow. So the expansion space will be needed. We are here today as a result of great partnerships. And I'm learning that's the Fort Worth way, right? These partnerships. Recognizing the need for this facility, a partnership was formed. The Citizen Support Group for the Mounted Patrol, led by Mr. Brad Barnes, the current president, and by Mr. Bob Watt, the past president, spearheaded the fundraising efforts to obtain the necessary dollars to build this facility and supervised the design and construction work to get us to this point where we can open the facility today. We can't thank them enough for their leadership, initiative, and energy. And let's just take a time out for that partnership right there with the support group. The support group and the donors, it's absolutely terrific to bring us to this point here today. The project is also a collaboration between city departments, the police department and the community Parks and Community Services department. They developed the idea of dedicating these 10 acres of the West Community Park for this facility, and the plan was approved by the Parks Board and ultimately the City Council. This approach had the twofold benefit of increasing police department presence in Northwest Fort Worth and also saved the cost of purchasing land for this facility. And so I want to also thank Chief Halstead and Richard Zavala for their vision and mutual contributions to the success of this project. Let's give it to them. But again, let's go back to thanking one more time the support group and Mr. Brad Barnes, Mr. Watt, and the donors for delivering us this wonderful facility. One more time for them. Now I get to turn the podium over to Mr. Dennis Shingleton, District 7, and if you're good, he might even do his Mr. Ed impersonation.
I promised the mayor that I would clean it up a little today, so I won't do that. Hey, you know, today is a new beginning for the men and women of the Fort Worth Police Department Mounted Patrol, as well as their four-legged teammates. This much-needed and state-of-the-art facility provides an exceptional training environment, as well as a more natural environment for the health and happiness of these horses, and especially when they're not working and in their patrol areas. You know, the Mounted Patrol has more than just a ceremonial mission, and the training provided by this facility will certainly enhance their mission capability, but it allows for, as Mr. Cook said, that the growth of this city and the growth of this unit in the city. This project's a huge step forward for the city. It represents an important step for District 7. Not only does the facility create a police presence on this side of the lake, but for the local businessmen and for the homeowners and the surrounding neighborhood associations and nearby communities. And as expected today, the local neighborhoods are represented and have they always been represented here in the lake and exceedingly supportive of this project. In particular, I would like to thank the leaders of, and they're here today, from the Neighborhood Association on South Lake Worth, Fort Worth, South Lake Worth, the East Lake Worth Neighborhood Association, the Scenic Shores Neighborhood Association, the North Lake Worth Association, and the Eastgate Neighbors. They've been great partners in this project, and I thoroughly appreciate their enthusiastic response to it. The Mounted Patrol unit will also establish a formal relationship as another mission with the Fort Worth ISD and the Arlington Heights FAA program just next door, which will facilitate educational opportunities for our youth here on this site. These programs will start once the agreement is formalized, and we're looking at 2015 there. And many thanks go out to the Fort Worth ISD for their partnership as well. I think it's pretty clear that this facility is far more than just another police facility. I want to specifically thank Brad Barnes and Bob Watt, the patriarch of equestrian activity here in Fort Worth, and the citizen support group for the Mounted Patrol. You've done a wonderful job. The donors, all of you from the community have done just a great personal and a civic donation to this community. Without this group and these donors who've contributed significantly, this project would not have been possible. So thank you very much. The man that's absolutely key and integral to the success of this project has been Brad Barnes. And he's done yeoman's work to get this project not only off the ground, but to completion. So with that, I would introduce Brad.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. We originally were going to do this outdoors, so I'm sure you're much appreciative for the indoor facility now. The mounted units in Fort Worth police history are long, and they've always played a vital role in Fort Worth. And that's in the protection of Fort Worth, not just as some ceremonial unit. So we're very proud of the work that these men and women do. And as you've heard, Sergeant Hill, I think you've got some new duties and charges that have been laid on you there pretty heavy. You're going to have to work with the school district for these kids. We've got some of these FFA students. Y'all stand up.
There you go.
Stand up. These young folks, that's the next generation right there. They're going to be running things, and they're from the Arlington Heights FFA, and they house their animal units right over here next door. So there's going to be some great interaction there. But all these folks before me have talked about the long list, and I think we've identified everybody in the room. If your name has not been called out, would you raise your hand? We'll try to recognize you. But seriously, it has taken everybody to get this done. And Dennis, your comments were very kind, but it is not about me, and I know it's not about our patriarch, Mr. Watt. It's about everybody in this room. From the time Richard came out and visited with us, and Chief Halstead was involved, and City Council, and every department that we've worked with have been supportive. And every department in the city has done everything possible to push the project along, because we were on a very aggressive timeline, as the folks from Sodalco will attest, I believe. But really, why we are here today is to honor and recognize the vision and the support from some very unique individuals. And that really started with the leadership from the Jane and John Justin Foundation. When Bob and I went to visit with them and laid out what we thought needed to take place, they wholeheartedly jumped in. And in our history of the Citizen Support Group, that goes back to John Justin. He was very integral in those early days in starting this support group. I'm honored just to represent the support group. And then as soon as we left the Jane and John Justin Foundation, we went to see the Burnett Foundation, and they jumped right in right behind them. And then went to see the Amon Carter Foundation, and they helped us get over the line. So those are the people that we're here today to honor. It's their vision and their support that makes everything out here work. You can have all the plans in the world, you can have all the dreams, but till you have the gold, it doesn't happen. So thank y'all very much. Joe?
Understanding Mr. Barnes' comments about recognition, I do want to recognize another distinguished guest who slipped in during the comments, former mayor of the city of Fort Worth, Mike Moncrief, and his wife, Rosie. Thank you for being here. At this time, I would like for the city officials behind me to join Mr. Barnes at the podium for the symbolic transfer of ownership ceremony that will actually transfer the facility to the city.
Okay, Mayor and Dennis, we have a plaque and a belt buckle, which should be symbolic of what we do, and it's for the Fort Worth Police Mounted Patrol Equestrian Facility in partnership with the City of Fort Worth and the Citizen Support Group for the Fort Worth Police Mounted Patrol, dedicated December 17th, 2014.
Awesome.
And just so that you'll be able to get in, we got you some keys too.
Perfect.
I get the key.
There's two.
These keys need to go to Sergeant Hill. Thank you. What a great day. I really don't know how many of you have been to our old facility, but it is just despicable. And I will tell you, it truly is. I'm not sure that's a strong enough word, is it? And I grew up riding horseback, and if you've ever seen where the horses are out there, horses are a whole lot like children. If you don't give them a little space to run and to work, they're a whole lot harder when you get a saddle on them to work them into a day's work then. So these guys and girls have been working a lot harder just to overcome the facility itself. You know, this is a classic Cowtown partnership. We saw a need, cities kind of scratching our head, and lo and behold, our partners had already seen that need and stepped up to make it happen. You know, the city can't do everything, nor should we do everything. And what makes Fort Worth work so incredibly well is the fact that the people of Fort Worth and the partnerships really do accomplish things better, quicker, and much easier than we can. The vision for the Mounted Patrol began more than 30 years ago, and Mike and Rosie certainly know, as leading this city, our image as Cowtown is one of the things that truly sets us apart. We're all about culture, we're all about the people, but one of the things that people love is to see all of y'all on your horses and to see what's going on. It makes Fort Worth that great city of character made up of fabulous characters, which we are. Mounted Patrol, you know, was started more than 30 years ago with one officer and one horse. Very much symbolic. And now there are 11 approved positions and 15 horses. I think that's right, Sergeant Hill. Pardon my voice. I'm just getting over laryngitis, which would probably make some of you happy because you're ready for the speeches to stop. But they've participated in presidential inaugurations, the naval ship commissioning, the plank, and the picture are out here on the wall, which was everybody that was there for the USS Fort Worth Commission was just blown away by that. And countless parades. Every time you turn around, they show up somewhere where we need them and really make the image of Fort Worth so important. It's our lasting legacy. But they serve a more important function. They truly are there doing that unique law enforcement piece from the back of our four-legged partners. From a Western saddle with a cowboy hat. Let me tell you, they're just as well equipped with what they need to take care of the bad guys as any officer on the street. We truly appreciate what they do. But just as much, we appreciate the support group led by Bob and Brad and too many countless others of you who have worked along the side or ridden along the side, these officers, to make this happen. This is going to be the best facility in the nation, not just for the horses, not just for the officers, but for training, for activities, for these kids to come and learn a little bit about, to partner with the neighbors. I can see you could host neighborhood meetings here and enjoy it. And we're deeply grateful for everyone that's had a hand in it. In that classic Fort Worth fashion, you make it happen. It's always been your Fort Worth. You step up and make that crucial for us. Our design firm, our architects, construction did such a great job. Next time I do a project, you got this delivered so fast, I'm going to get y'all to do it. It truly is a first-class, fabulous facility that will be enjoyed for years and years to come. Now, if you haven't noticed, you can tell who's really excited. The smiles have not left their faces since they were out here at the gate to greet us this morning. And I bet those smiles will last all the way through grand entry at the rodeo, don't you think? It'll be great. And it's my pleasure now to introduce someone who needs no introduction that we're still mad at because he's leaving us. Chief Jeff Halstead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And so I'm glad you used the word despicable, because that was a lot nicer word that I think that a lot of us would use for the older facility. A quick note of history. I believe it was after the 2010 stock show when Mayor Moncrief made it very, very crystal clear to me that I needed to do something to fix that place. And we knew what he was referring to, because it just wasn't fitting. It wasn't fitting for the class of this city. It wasn't fitting for the professionals that serve. And you got to remember, they're on these literally every day of the week, regardless of conditions, heat, cold. They are out doing our mission. And then I got to thank a special appreciation for Richard Zavala. He may not remember, but in 2010, when we were at Tommy's Hamburger, I'm begging to him, please help me find some land because I have no money. And I got to get this done because it was made very clear to me that we're going to get this done. And I knew I was in good hands when Mr. Watt and Mr. Barnes gave me all the support I needed. So, gentlemen, thank you all so much. You have been absolute, true dedicated partners, and it was your vision that got us here today. I wanted to cover briefly about how important a mounted patrol is, not just from an operational capacity, but if you look, and you can go back many years, when there is significant community challenges, when there are civil unrest, and we're seeing this in some communities across the nation, the successful police departments in addressing these mass crowds have a dedicated mounted patrol unit. You don't realize, but in maneuvering crowds, a horse can take the role of 10 to 20 officers, a single horse. And the level and caliber of training that they deploy, we never ever are worried about their deployment in those types of situations. They're extremely safe, very professional, but also very dedicated in keeping us safe and letting people exercise their rights when they're out doing that. So watching those headlines, when you see challenges and it looks bad in the news, there's not a mounted unit around. The mounted unit advanced a lot of those capacities and cleaned that crowd so that it's much calmer. So thank y'all. I know that you have done that here numerous times, and you are outstanding at that job. And as chief, I couldn't be prouder. And what's really important for the Fort Worth Police Department and the Fort Worth culture is our community partnership, our community relations in policing. There is not a day goes by that you won't see one of our mounted officers in downtown engaging with residents and visitors and tourists, patrolling the stockyards, and then one of the greatest events, I think, in our community, the Stock Show and Rodeo. They are literally the anchoring staple when they have the grand entry. And I tell you, everybody is beaming when we see you all, some other posse members, as well as our dedicated riders. It's inspiring to see y'all do that. I know you put in very long hours, and I know sometimes it's extremely cold and challenging. We're very proud of what you do. But that community relations partnership is essential. And I'm telling you, what a vision that y'all had, Mr. Barnes, in engaging with the FFA and the young students, because that is a new generation of partnerships that is going to anchor a legacy here in Fort Worth. And then last but not least, I just wanted to say how great it is, and Mr. Cook mentioned it, that public-private partnership is literally what sets us apart from all other communities in the United States. This project would have never happened for probably 20 years because we have so many other priorities. Not because it's not important. There are so many other projects, and we don't even want to go through the list. But thankfully, like Mr. Barnes said, literally, immediately, people step up with that motivation for this, get this project done. And driving in here today and see the completed project, it's absolutely perfect. And I just wanted to tell all of the people that raised the money, the leadership in this project, on behalf of the men and women of the greatest department in the United States, thank you for giving us the greatest Christmas gift you could ever give these dedicated officers. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief Halstead. I think it's time to cut the ribbon. So if I could ask the distinguished group behind me to assemble in front of the podium. Sergeant Hill, could you get your officers to position themselves and unfurl the ribbon, please?
On the count of three.
1, 2, 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the ceremony for today. Feel free to walk through the facility, through the doors behind me. Sergeant Hill has his officers positioned throughout the facility with information on the areas that they are positioned at so that they can explain the facility to you. And then after your tour, come on back in and enjoy the refreshments again provided by the support group. Thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it.